Everyone wants to own a physical therapy business, but nobody tells you what it actually costs to open one. Most PTs think starting a business means opening a clinic, but that's actually the most expensive option on the list. One model can cost well over $150,000 before you even see your first patient, and another can realistically be started for about $1,000. So today I'm comparing the startup capital required for 5 different therapy business models, and I'm not guessing at these numbers. I did outpatient mobile for 2 years before killing that department and fully focusing on my home health therapy company that collected over $13 million before I sold it. My dad owned outpatient brick-and-mortar clinics, and I've talked to dozens of PTs that do either virtual PT or cash pay clinics. So let's go ahead and get into this. Our first model is the outpatient insurance-based brick-and-mortar clinic. And this is the model everyone pictures when they think own a PT business, and it's also the most expensive by far. First expense is the rent. For a space that supports 2 to 3 therapists, here's what you're looking at depending on your market. If you're in an area like St. Louis, Missouri, about $3,500 a month, Houston, Texas, around $4,700 a month, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, about $5,000 a month, and if you're here in Los Angeles, where I am, it may be $9,000 a month. And don't forget, you're typically committing to a multi-year lease at that monthly rent. Now let's talk furniture, because this adds up fast. And I'm not going to have an exhaustive list of everything, but just quickly, waiting room furniture, chairs, desks, tables, all the decor. That's $3,500 to $5,500 easily. A front desk or reception setup is $1,500 to another $2,500. As far as treatment tables, if you have 2 or 3 PTs, you'll need at least 5 or 6, and those can run from $800 each on the lower end to $2,000 for nice high lows. So we're talking $4,000 to $12,000 there. So your total furniture bill is somewhere in the range of $9,000 to $20,000. Then equipment. So by the time you've bought cardio equipment, strength equipment, modalities, and all the little things you don't really think about, you're looking at roughly $10,000 to $18,000 in equipment stuff alone. And this is assuming you don't get anything crazy or specialized, like an Ultra G treadmill that can cost $70,000 or a shockwave machine that goes from anywhere from like $50,000 to $100,000. Then there's the one that most new owners never even budget for, which is build out. If the space isn't already a physical therapy clinic, leaseholder improvements can run $10,000 to $50,000 or more before you even bring the furniture inside. Now let's go over the monthly recurring costs, things like laundry, your EMR software, internet, phone, computer subscriptions, Google and Facebook ads, Yelp, brochures, printed materials. All of this stuff. Not just that though, we also need a billing company, which typically takes anywhere from 4 to 8% of your collections, unless you go and bring in your own in-house people, but you're probably not doing that in the beginning. That is very expensive. You're bringing on a whole specialist at that point. Then you'll need a marketing budget to build relationships with referring doctors for things like lunches and visits, right? And these can cost anywhere from like $200 to $1,000 a month. So then you'll need a front desk person at $20 an hour. You'll need likely at least one, so that's another $3,000 a month. And that's just their hourly rate. That doesn't include benefits, retirement, health, employment taxes, a bunch of other things that are also going to add up. I'm not even including those. Then we can go into supplies like TheraBands, tape, cleaning products. That can cost anywhere from $200 to $400 a month. And by the way, I did the ordering of these supplies for the outpatient clinic I worked for. So I have a pretty good idea of what it costs and how quickly you go through them. Now add in liability and malpractice insurance, business licensing, signage, and you're realistically looking at $50,000 to $150,000 just to open the doors, plus $7,000 to $25,000 a month in overhead before you even pay yourself. This is why to start a clinic, most people have to take out loans, and unfortunately, a lot fail in year 1. And it's not because the owner isn't a good therapist, it's because the overhead crushes them before referrals ever get a chance to really catch up. It is highly unusual to open the doors and have a full schedule booked. It usually takes months, if not years, to build up that referral volume. So now we have the most expensive business model covered. It's time to dive into what most PTs think is the easiest model. So this brings us to our second model, which is virtual PT. And this one promises the dream. Work from anywhere and treat patients from your laptop with no rent and no overhead. And I get why that sounds appealing. But the truth is, no one knows who you are unless you already have way over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And building that audience or paying to get in front of that many potential patients without an audience is super expensive. And I know because with my current company, Home Health Leaders, I currently only have about 25,000 followers on Instagram. So I'm paying about $25,000 a month on ads so that people can find me and know who I am. And this is why most people never get these companies off the ground and end up stuck at their outpatient job, wondering why they can only get 1 or 2 virtual patients at a time. This is what it actually costs to make a virtual PT company a real full-time business. First off is an ad budget, and I'm talking a real one that generates consistent leads, and that's about $10,000 a month. Then you need a marketing coach to help teach you how to actually run those ads and get those leads. It's about $12,000 a month. Now, if you want to hire a marketing agency to run them for you, you're looking at $5,000 a month and sometimes a revenue share of the profits on top of that. But I wouldn't recommend hiring one if you're only running a $10,000 a month budget for ads. Now, what typically happens next is you find out you probably suck at sales. So if you're spending $10,000 a month to get potential patients on calls and you aren't able to sell them onto your virtual packages, you are literally burning tons of money, which means you'll probably hire a sales coach, which is about $15,000. Now, you'll probably bring on a video editing team to keep content consistent. That's about $700 a month. And you'll have a tech stack, a CRM, Zoom, some kind of exercise app, an app for delivery to your community, a scheduling tool, some kind of lead form tool, a website designer, a texting app, and others that are going to amount to somewhere probably around $300 to $600 a month. So to start a real full-time virtual PT business, you're looking at spending $37,000 to get it started, and then over $11,000 every single month just to be able to stay visible and have the software that supports the business. And once again, that is before you've ever paid yourself a dollar. And look, I know these numbers because I talk to tons of therapists trying to do virtual, and I've also spent at least this, if not more, on many of the categories to run my virtual online business that I run now, Home Health Leaders. So virtual sounds like freedom, but it's actually one of the most expensive patient acquisition models on this list. All right, next up is cash pay clinic. Now, this is a blend of the first two. You're still going to need a physical space, so you need rent, but it's usually a smaller footprint. So maybe 1 or 2 rooms instead of a full clinic. You're probably looking more in the $1,500 to $3,000 a month, once again, depending on your market. Now, again, you'll likely have to do a multi-year contract, so you'll want to have several months saved up as the schedule builds. And of course, as it scales, you'll want to hire therapists, and this rent and the space will have to increase. But then you run into the same problem as virtual, which is nobody knows you exist, and cash patients aren't calling their insurance companies to find you. They're only finding you through your marketing. So you still need that ad budget, community events, referral partnerships, and this stuff is typically going to run $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Now, with this model, you do avoid the billing company fee since there's no insurance to bill, but you're paying for equipment, signage, supplies, the EMR, and probably a front desk person. So all in, you're probably looking at $30,000 to $50,000 to start and another $7,000 to $15,000 a month in overhead if you are the only PT. Again, before you ever pay yourself a dollar. Now, that is better than a brick-and-mortar insurance-based clinic, but it's still not cheap, and it still entirely depends on your ability to be good at marketing and sales, not just clinical care. Now, the fourth model makes no sense to me, which is outpatient mobile. This model has significantly less physical overhead since you're going to the patient instead of them coming to you. Now, outpatient mobile typically bills Medicare Part B, which requires a billing company. And when my company did it for 2 years, they took 7% of our revenue, not profit. All right, meaning every $100,000 that we billed as revenue, they took $7,000. Now, with this model, you need Medicare credentialing company to get you set up properly, which probably costs between $1,500 and $3,000 up front, plus some ongoing compliance costs. You'll also need some kind of marketing budget to build relationships with referring doctors, like $200 to $1,000 a month. Because just like virtual and cash, doctors don't send patients to someone that they've never heard of. Now, of course, you'll still need liability insurance. There's a cost to form the business, and there are some supply costs. So total startup here lands around $5,000, which definitely sounds better. But remember, you also have that 7% off the top going to the billing company and marketing spend eats into your margin every single month that you're in business. But the much bigger thing than any of that, and the main reason I dislike this model so much and closed down the department when I ran it, was the reimbursement. Because it was outpatient mobile, we had to bill 4 units, which is 53 to 67 minute long visits. And after the billing company took its 7%, we were typically making about the same as a 30 to 45 minute home health visit. It was also much more operationally complicated to run since every therapist needed to be credentialed with Medicare, we had to do the Medicare billing, and it just generally had more rules to follow, which all equates to more expenses and more overhead. In fact, we found we couldn't even go in network with insurances because they didn't pay enough for us to send a therapist to the patient's house and still make a profit. Which brings us to the 5th and final model, and my personal favorite, which is a home health therapy company. Now, to start a home health therapy company, I often joke it takes a $200 bag of equipment and a cell phone, which you should already have. Now, of course, there are some small setup costs that the rest of the companies have, like the liability insurance and the company setup fees I've mentioned on some of these other models. But that's it. Almost. What I found after helping well over 100 therapists start these companies through my Home Health Accelerator program is there is one hidden cost that kept popping up, which was across the country, lawyers were typically charging about $8,000 to write contracts. Now, this isn't a hard requirement in the very beginning because you can just use the agency's contract for free to get it started, but if you are going to make this a real company, I definitely recommend you have your own. And this is why I hired a home health specialty law firm and paid them over $9,000 to write the 3 contracts you need for the members of my Home Health Accelerator program. And that's the absolute beauty of this model. That's it. No rent, no build out, no expensive equipment, no $10,000 a month ad budget, no billing company that takes 7% of the revenue, no complicated website or scheduling softwares, brochures, no video editors, and you don't have to sell each patient one at a time to sign up with you because the agencies already have the patients. They've already done the marketing to hospitals and doctors with their own budget. So you're not trying to convince a stranger to trust you with their body for $150 a session. You're partnering with agencies who have a constant census of hundreds or thousands of patients that are desperate for reliable therapists and who send you patients that already have a doctor's order requiring therapy. This model solves the most expensive ongoing cost to a therapy company, which is acquisition of new patients. So if home health is so great, why isn't everybody doing it? The catch is that the business isn't about finding patients. It's about finding the right agencies and building those relationships. And that's the real skill that you need to solve. And if your idea of finding them is in a Google search, ChatGPT, or Indeed, you are in for a very slow start of your business. So let's put them all side by side. Brick and mortar insurance based, $50,000 to $150,000 to open, plus $7,000 to $25,000 a month in overhead, depending on if it's just you or up to 3 therapists. Virtual PT, $37,000 to launch, plus $11,000 a month. Cash pay clinics, $30,000 to $50,000 to open, plus $7,000 to $15,000 a month. Outpatient mobile, just $5,000 to start, plus they take 7% of every dollar you ever make. And finally, a home health therapy company, about $1,000 to get started, or up to $9,000 if you want your own contracts, plus nearly no monthly overhead in the starting phase. And this is exactly why home health was the model that gave me financial freedom. Now, I won't say it was easy because building a business isn't, but you have a tremendous advantage when the business model itself doesn't require you to go into debt, take out loans, or have thousands of dollars of recurring monthly overhead. So if you are a therapist looking at these numbers and thinking that the home health model makes the most sense for your business and the life that you want to create, then I want to help. There's a link in the description to book a 100% free strategy session with either myself or my team. We'll go over where you're at, what your goals are, if I can help, what it would look like to work together. And if this video was helpful, hit like and subscribe so you see my future videos.